You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Round Table, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and Barack Obama's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
And good morning. This is Phil Stargell. This is the Abolitionist Round Table of Michigan. And we have today a very, very enlightening program. And it's going to give you some things to think about. It's going to give you some questions that you might want to ask. Because I think the last few weeks we have seen a lot of action, a lot of smoke coming out of Washington D.C. But we have a lot of opposition within the party and from without the party, and it troubles me because I vote as a Republican, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that the Republicans do. But one thing I disagree with the Republicans is that they often try too hard to accommodate the position of the opposition, the Democrat Party. They are willing to compromise at the drop of a hat. They're willing to compromise their position at the drop of a hat, and no position is a bigger point of contention than the immigration issue. But then there is one other issue that I believe is at the root of all of the problems facing America, and that is the abortion on demand problem in this country. And we see football players disrespecting the American flag and the national anthem and American traditions. I mean, because that's what it is. And their reasoning for their opposition and their disrespect to American traditions is that America is a racist country because of systematic conditions, and nothing could be further from the truth. With all of the laws, all of the civil rights laws, and I contend that those civil rights laws are detrimental to the America's idea of liberty, because they only allow rights for people protected by the civil rights statute. And if you oppose people from those that are protected under those statutes, then they will step on your constitutional rights. Now, I actually heard a supposed constitutional lawyer say that you cannot take away one's civil rights because of the Constitution. But I say that they do it daily. They daily take away constitutional rights because of civil rights. So people, I think that you better start looking at what I've been saying here for the last, I'd say 6 months about how they have turned constitutional rights into civil rights. You hear it all the time. People say, I have a right to my freedom of speech, but you can't object to them saying anything, or they call you all kinds of names. And we see it happening on a daily basis. So I just would like, maybe as the callers call in, maybe we could get a few of them to tell us what is their main concern, the number one concern, because what seems to be the going major concern right today is the Judge Roy Moore incident, and now we see Al Franken, and we see a lot of other people. And people have brought charges against them. And in the case of Al Franken, there is evidence. And so I could understand him having to make some type of statement on behalf of his behavior, and maybe even contemplate stepping down from his position. But in the case of Roy Moore, I can't understand why it is that that he is under the hot seat as much as he is from mostly his own party. And to give you the proof of that, Al Franken there is proof of evidence and proof of his behavior, his misconduct. And they call for an investigation by old turkey gobbler himself, Mitch McConnell. He wants him to have an investigation. What do you need to investigate? He's admitted to what he did. In the case of Roy Moore, he wants him to step away from the race. He wants him to take himself out of the race. The only reason why he wants him to take himself out of the race is because he knows that there is no evidence that they can point to prove that this man did what they're telling everybody that he did. And this goes back to constitutional rights becoming civil rights. Civil rights mean that there's a penalty for exercising constitutional rights. And I know that's a hard concept to get your arms around, but that's what it is. There's someone that makes a charge to you. You are under the Constitution, innocent until proven guilty. But the advice that people that should be standing behind those constitutional concepts, their advice is that Roy Moore step away from what he has been trying to do for the last 2 years, and all because there is a effort to make him unelectable. And from the response by his own fellow Republicans, they are on their very, very good road to get him out of the race by any means necessary. And I think that for that, the Republicans and the voters should be looking elsewhere for a Senate Majority Leader. Now, I haven't said that before. Maybe my opinion doesn't count, but I think Mitch McConnell, it's time for him to go. And I wish on the next election that he's due to represent himself, I would hope that people say to him that you did not represent your voters and send him packing. Well, I'm gonna. We have a call this morning early. I'm gonna get to that call, and that's Bruce from Grosse Pointe. Good morning, Bruce.
Hey, good morning, Phil. How you doing? Happy Thanksgiving to you, and also to Del too. I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
And I hope he's feeling better.
Yes. I haven't talked to him, in the last day or so. Mm-hmm. And so it's possible that he may be feeling good enough to give us a happy Thanksgiving. And I was going to do those happy wishes, but I wanted to get to your call before you had to wait too long.
So I beat you to it, eh?
Yeah, but it's a welcome thing.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Well, I don't know if you happened to see the little clip from Fox News yesterday where they had a dust-up between Orrin Hatch and Sherrod Brown, the senator from Ohio.
Yes, I did.
Debating the tax thing, and here's Sherrod Brown trotting out the class warfare card again, and finally, Hatch had enough, and he just let loose on the guy. I understand, Phil, that Trump wants a victory, but what we're seeing right now, and I listen to Mark Levin on the way home from work every night. This is not tax reform, because as Mark Levin points out, if this was tax reform, you would be seeing across-the-board cuts and lowering of all the rates.
Yeah.
The top rate, from what I understand, still under the Senate plan, still stays at 39.6%. Now, why can we not go back, take a walk down memory lane and bring the rates down at least to the top rate being 28.5% like it was under Reagan? Instead, what they're doing, Phil, is they're adding, and I don't know if you know this, but I just found this out the other night, that a new top rate has been added for people making over $1 million a year, and that rate is 45.6%.
Yeah. But here's where they believe that they can make up that difference, and that is by doubling the deductions. And it's possible but people won't see that. But right. I am foursquare for the idea that they are taking away the deduction for states like California, New York, Illinois, and those states that have these oppressive city taxes and these oppressive state taxes. And the only thing it is basically to buy votes. Yeah. From illegal immigrants.
Well, the thing is, Phil, but it's not just the blue states also have Republicans that are in them, and
I agree.
I hear people saying that they're going to get slammed all the time, and this is exactly what's happening. The class warfare thing. Getting back to that, is what all these people have to do is go back and look to the time of Calvin Coolidge, the time of Jack Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, even George H. Bush. Or George W. Bush, rather, that every time that tax rates are lowered and that type of thing, the Treasury, the revenues to the Treasury double. I mean, for Reagan, for example, Phil, in before the tax cuts kicked in the early 1980s, the Treasury, I believe, was getting about $500 billion a year, and under Reagan, that all just doubled to like $1 trillion a year. And the problem was that you had a Congress that was controlled by Democrats, and they made a deal with Reagan to dollar for dollar or $2 in the cuts for every dollar in tax, that type of thing. And the thing was, they lied to him. Yeah. They lied to him, and they spending through the roof.
Is there anything expected out of the Democrats but for them to lie?
Yeah, I know. But, the thing is also you got to look at, and you're talking about McConnell, you're talking about Boehner and Ryan, all these people. They don't want to cut government. They want it to grow. They want it to grow so they can increase their power and their influence. And this is something. And
buy votes.
Right, and buy votes, exactly right. And like you said, the illegal aliens and that type of thing. They want, both sides want open borders and all this type of thing. And you have somebody like Debbie Dingell, who was saying that she was really concerned that this would add to the national debt.
Yeah.
Well,
Please.
since
Yeah,
when was-
I heard a few people talking about that, and I mean the crocodile
when did they care
tears,
about this?
Yeah, come on, these
I
people
know.
absolutely care nothing. And just look at what is our deficit? What is it? $22 trillion.
Yeah, and that is what's on budget.
Yeah, and when have you heard a Democrat? The last time I heard any Democrat raising the issue of balancing, getting close to balance, even trying to cut any money out of the deficit, is that guy that used to call the deficit the deficit. I can't remember his name, but he was a Democrat. And do you remember that guy that had that particular way of saying the deficit?
It sounds like a southern
yeah,
Democrat.
He was. I think he was from Missouri or somewhere.
But the thing is, okay, where was Debbie Dingell? Now she's been in Congress for 2 or 3 terms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was 6 out of the 8 years that Obama was there. Where was she screaming and shouting from the rooftops about Obama more than doubling the national debt from $9 trillion to $19 trillion?
Yeah.
And that's not even counting Phil. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we have $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities.
That's right.
Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And the thing is, in a good year, our economy a GDP will be about $17 trillion a year. Now, in order to start addressing that, you would have to have several years of GDP growth at 17% and not spend a dime on anything else other than debt retirement.
Well, yeah. And there is a very simple solution to this problem, but you got Republicans that are so willing to compromise, like McCain and the whole crew, the Susan Collins and Barbara Murkowski's and all of them. Look, this whole deficit problem comes from the idea that they impeached Richard Nixon and put that got the Republicans to compromise because they had the majority.
Yeah.
In the House, but they I mean not in the House, but they had the Senate majority, and they allowed the Democrats to put in this instead of being on a zero this baseline budget.
Right. Yeah.
And so once they got it in the baseline budgeting, there was no way that there would ever be anything close to balancing a budget.
Right.
Now, we've had Republicans that have tried to hold the line on the spending. The Democrats, every time the Republicans passed a tax cut bill, the Democrats reneged on their end of the bargain of cutting, actually making some cuts. If there was $2 worth of tax cuts, there was supposed to be $1 of spending cuts. Now, the Democrats always want to enforce how are you going to pay for this tax cut. It's all going to the rich. You can't, all the money's going to the rich, so you can't pay for it.
Yeah.
In actuality, the money that goes to the rich is their money.
Yeah, it's all our money.
And so but the majority of the money that goes out goes to, guess what? People that don't pay taxes.
Or in the case of the $15 million fund for sexual harassment claims. Now wait a second.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 200 and some odd of these claims over the past several years, and I understand that a couple of years there was like $4 million and then $2 million, and nobody is saying anything about where that money went or to whom it went.
Well, the one thing that stands out to me is that, just like you say, you don't know where the money goes. It's because the Democrats have no regard for the rule of law. They care nothing about laws.
Well, they were founded as an outlaw party.
That's
really,
exactly
if you look at
right.
it, look at some of the people that Aaron Burr was one of the people that helped to found the Democrat Party, and look what he did.
And let's not forget what happened when they came back into the Union after, secession from the Union.
Yeah.
When they came back in, they were able to take up exactly where they had been, obstruct until they get what they want, and then they'll force a compromise on the Republicans. And I heard a reporter, happened to be a black reporter, asked Sarah Huckabee about the compromise that allowed for slavery before the Civil War began.
Yeah, what the Missouri Compromise, right?
Yeah. And so she, Sarah Huckabee, said a great thing. She said, it's amazing that, anybody would have any idea that anyone in this White House would be for any form of slavery.
Well, that's a gotcha question.
Yeah.
Still, you know that.
Yeah.
You know that.
And so, but we have.
And does this reporter even know what the Missouri Compromise was?
But see, that's why I say that Republicans have got to stop this idea that they need to compromise. And we have an opportunity right now, and this is why the Democrats are pushing so hard. There is an opportunity now where the Republicans could have a majority, a supermajority, such as Barack Obama had when he was there. But guess what? We're losing out because we can't keep the party unified long enough to have any successes.
Yeah, I know, and this is what is so maddening about this. I mean, if both parties are going to act like that, where the heck are we going to turn? I mean, do we have to establish a third party? Because the track record of that over the years has not been good. I think the last time you had a third party and was the Independent Party where George Wallace got Ross Perot. Okay, Ross Perot got what double digits in votes and that type of thing, and percentage and that type of thing.
Yeah, and
is this what we have to do, Phil?
But he put guess who in office? Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. This has been the Democrat Party strategy ever since the end of the Civil War and the beginning of Reconstruction. During Reconstruction, the Republican Party paired up with the black voters in the South because in 5 of those rebellious states, the black vote was the majority.
Yeah.
And the Republican Party was with them. They brainwashed the black people into believing that it was the Democrats that were their friend.
Yeah.
And so what did we do? They rejected Reconstruction and rejected constitutional law and settled for Jim Crow law.
Yeah.
And then it took another 100 years to get civil rights for blacks, but that still benefited the Democrat Party. Democrats
I remember what Brother Lee says on Joshua's Trail, that he brought up the fact that back in the days after the Civil War, after blacks had finally received their just rights and that type of thing, that if a black guy was interested in marrying a black woman and she found out he was a Democrat, she wouldn't have anything to do with him.
Wouldn't have anything to do with him. Exactly right. But today it's almost the exact opposite.
I know.
Today, if you are a Republican conservative and as a black, voter, a lot of the women, they're right along with the female white women in this idea that they need abortion on demand to be a success in life.
Well, I hear the music, Phil, and again, I have thanks so much for the time today, and have a great Thanksgiving, and don't eat too much turkey. We don't want you falling asleep at the wheel out there.
All right, thanks
You take care. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and also to Del. Hope you're listening,
okay,
my friend.
We're going to break, and we'll be back after these messages.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Round Table with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Hello, I am Milt, and this is Logically Speaking Uncensored. It's time the Democrat Party disband. The list of evil deeds inflicted upon the nation by the Democrat Party are legendary, and their diabolical policies and political agendas would make the rulers of darkness mentioned in Ephesians 6 and 12 very proud. From their incubation as loyal allies of England and collaboration traitors in opposition to the foundational values of guaranteed freedoms and liberties, many collaborators known as loyalists, after the defeat of England by George Washington and the Revolutionary Army, migrated to the Upper East Coast, regrouped, and around 1828 transformed themselves into a political entity called the Democrat Party. But their mission of opposition to the United States, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution, which make the nation great, remained unchanged. Today, most of the nation's social upheavals, subversive activities, and institutional dysfunctionalities of class warfare are connected to the protocols of the Democrat Party. The turmoil engendered in academia, neighborhoods, organizations, and individuals are the results of the Democrats' divisional enclaves of socialism and contrived superficial grievances of envy and hatred. Democrat ideology has shattered families and national unity and decimated the military with fascist dictates and perverted moralities. And killing of babies by abortions, anarchy, and racial animus is acceptable. And they publicly endorse aiding and abetting unlawful sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants, while they viciously attack unjustly Christian and Judeo religiosity. In rationalizing restoring relationships with Cuba, President Obama said, if something hasn't worked for 50 years, it's time for a change. For over 190 years, the Democrat Party has been unworkable and a national disaster. If Obama is correct, it's time to change Democrat narratives into truth and expose their evil deeds. If one with an ounce of objective honesty research the unrevised history of the Democrat Party, they will find that the entire party is a Trojan horse with an insatiable appetite, waiting to devour the nation from within. If we, the people of the United States, are to survive as one nation under God, the Democrat Party transgressions must be revealed. I know my wishes are inconsistent with the reality of the intractable laws of evildoers, but if human decency and truth is a virtue, then the Democrat Party collectively should admit their transgressions, past and present, pay reparations for supporting slavery, apologize and repent by doing what is right, disband. I am Milt, logically speaking, uncensored, saying, think about it.
And that, again, was sterling, just a great commentary by Milt Harris. And folks, believe me, if you get a chance to listen to all of his commentaries over the years, I mean, they just get better and better and better. So we are very thankful for Milt for sending those over. And we're going to get back to the agenda right quick here. This last little thing with Al Franken and Judge Roy Moore is to me just an example of what the Democrat Party strategy is and has always been. That is to make identity politics the showcase of their campaigns. Back like 40, 50, 60, and maybe 60, 70 years ago, it was all, the Democrat Party was all about holding down the progress of black Americans. And they were the party of racism. They were the party of white supremacy. Today, they are supposed to be the party of the little guy. And that means every identity group that you can think of, from transgenderism to illegal aliens, they want every last one of them because they know that once they get them to the point where they can vote, they are going to vote Democrat because they will promise them and give them anything to maintain power. And there's no other way for it. I mean, their best known strategy is there's something called the Curley effect, where that was named after the mayor of Boston that served 4 or 5 terms in there because he practiced this idea of identity politics. He perfected it, and the Democrats followed it. Franklin Roosevelt cut his teeth on it. So we know one thing that they have between the idea of identity politics and a willing press. They are very, very formidable because everything has to do with getting and acquiring power and maintaining power for long periods of time. That's their goal. The Republicans have always been a party of compromise. And if you go back and look into history, and you'll see that they got snookered on every deal that they compromised on. Like I said about after that, in the aftermath of the resignation of Richard Nixon, they got the Democrats got the Republicans to agree to the worst piece of stuff legislation ever done, and that is this budget idea that they come up with, where every year there's a 10% increase in the budget, whether or not they need it, whether or not it's warranted, and whether or not they deserve it. They get it. And it's caused havoc because it should not affect the whole country because of what goes on in a little area around the Beltway of Washington, D.C. But guess what? If you look at the Beltway around Washington, D.C., you'll see that it's the richest, has some of the richest, probably the top 3 richest counties in the total of the United States, and they produce absolutely nothing in Washington, D.C., but headaches for the rest of the country and problems for the rest of the country. This idea that they stop the subsidy for state and city income taxes is a brilliant idea. I doubt very seriously if they'll get it because they have Democrats in drag in their party. And there's no way that they're going to get that through with people like John McCain, Susan Collins, and let's not even forget about guys like Jeff Flake. These people have no loyalty to the people that elected them. The only thing they hear is the opposition party, Democrats. They, like I said a little earlier, the Republicans have a remarkable opportunity this year, this coming election year. They could actually get a supermajority if they played their cards right, if they did what the people asked them to, that elected them. They had that opportunity. They will blow it and probably lose one of the houses or maybe even both because they have treachery amongst their ranks. So what I have done is said that in my estimation, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask the callers, and that, by the way, that if you'd like to join the conversation, that number is 734-822-1600. And but I would like to give my top reason for the problems in the United States, and first among them is abortion. And this is something that just come over in the last day or two, that it says the report that the FBI might finally investigate Planned Parenthood for selling aborted fetal body parts. Now, in my estimation, it should have been an investigation, and somebody should have been should have went to jail. But in reality, what happened was that some of the people that were the whistleblowers on this ghoulish activity of selling body parts of aborted babies, some of them were given a hard time by the FBI and I guess some of the local police or something. But the thing is that it should have been investigated a long time ago, and that investigation should be over and successfully prosecuted, because that is not only against the law, but it's against nature to be selling human body parts on the open market. It's worse than slavery. So what it says here is that the FBI requested documents from the Senate Judiciary Committee that previously investigated Planned Parenthood's sale of fetal body parts, signaling they might soon investigate it themselves. Now, if you have an investigation by the Senate Judiciary Committee, why does the FBI have to request something from them? What took so long? Why didn't the Senate Judiciary Committee request that the FBI come in immediately after they come up with their findings? But who is in control of that? Well, if I would think that if a party that was ahead of it was a pro-life party, it would seem to me that activity would have began shortly after they finished their investigation. So we again see incompetence on the part of Republicans. And I believe that they wanted to sit on this information as long as they could, because they didn't want that information to be out anywhere near an election year, because just what you see going on with Judge Roy Moore, because polling says that Judge Moore is losing female voters by a big double-digit margin, big double digit, 20, 25 points or something like that. So this is why they don't want anything to do with defending the very minimal laws that are associated with abortion. I mean, they want to do nothing. They want nothing to do with it. And that's why, as I said before, we've got the issues. We could clean house. We could clean house in the Republican Party, but we got to clean house before we'll ever be able to change this country into what it even close to what it used to be. And that's the shame of it, because the opportunity exists. And so, to me, the abortion issue is the overall and the number one problem in this country today, even though there was a 2.8% drop in abortion in the state of Michigan. And I'm going to get into that a little more. And but I'm going to go to the lines, and we got Gary from Hazel Park. Good morning, Gary.
Hey, good morning. No, I agree with you completely on the abortion issue. I mean, this is a major stain on the soul of America, and we'll never make America great again as long as we have on-demand abortion or abortion of any kind. But that's only one symptom of the general decay, the moral decay of this country. I mean, we have a psychological disfigurement of our kids in school with this transgender garbage.
Yes.
And, I mean, there's so much evil that happens on behest of diversity that is just ripping this country apart.
Yes, it is.
And we have to get back to, and I'm an atheist, as you know, but we really have to get back to a biblical way of living. Even though I don't believe in the supreme being, there's a whole lot of rules and laws in the Bible that make perfect sense, and there's no reason why our society can't follow them, whether or not they're afraid of damnation or not.
Well, if I could just say, we also have a lot of good things in our Constitution that if we just followed that, it would make this country that much better. I mean, so much better.
Well, the biblical teachings and the Constitution are in concert.
That's right.
For most of our existence, until they decided to make sodomy legal, and then they made gay marriage illegal. Those things went away from the Constitution and away from, general logic. These things can be practiced, but they cannot be sanctioned by the government. And the minute they sanction it by the government and make it a protected class, make perversion a protected class,
yes,
another notch, another decay happens in our society.
And another voting block for the Democrat Party.
And another voting block, and which is the big plan, like you've mentioned already. They don't care about morality. They don't care about the future of the country. All they're worried about is their current power, their present power. Because if you go 50 years in the future, if we continue, we're going to have the most crazed, whacked-out people walking these streets.
Yep.
And remember, we got to add gene splicing to it, because once they start splicing genes with animals, and then you got to add the electronic component to it, which is people are going to start being cybotic.
That's right.
So we're going to have all kinds of mutants. We're going to be the Star Wars seed.
And one more thing, Gary, there's going to be something called a universal basic salary that'll allow people to sit around all day and just collect a check for doing absolutely nothing, and they are well on their way to bringing that to this country as a national practice.
Right, and if that happens, that will break the psyche of America. And the only way to reset it after that is through a cataclysmic event, such as a civil war or an EMP burst or an invasion or something major, something that would totally rewrite society. So we'd have to pretty much start from the ground up, where all the rules have to be reset to what they were before, just for survival.
Go back to day one.
Go back to day one. Because right now we've got it too easy.
Yes.
This country we don't understand what suffering is. And
what happened? Yep.
What happened?
Yeah. I'm sorry. My sound went off. I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, that's fine. We haven't suffered enough in this country for the last 100 years or so. Certain individuals and certain communities maybe, but as a nation, we haven't had to defend ourselves in like 200 years. So we have no idea what it really means. You go overseas to Europe, those people know much better about what totalitarianism is and how we have to defend our freedom. They know how.
And proof of that is many of these young kids today are willing to accept socialism, the socialism of Bernie Sanders, and they. I mean, it is just totally accepted that the socialism of the Democrat Party. But Bernie Sanders wants to go a little bit further, and these young kids are really ready to jump on board.
Well, that's part of the big plan also by the Democrats when they use John Dewey to corrupt the education system and once more decay the moral fiber of America. And the communists, you know about them too. It's all part of their big plan to bring this country down. And they are succeeding, and they've been running ripshod on this country for decades now. And just recently, over the last 10 or 15 years, we the people have finally realized it, and we're finally starting to fight back. But it's going to take another 30, 40, 50 years to get our country back. And it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of meetings, a lot of votes, and hopefully it won't have to come to violence.
Well, I think it's going to have to get to violence myself because we have more illegals in this country than we even have any kind of idea, and they are all ready to turn this into a socialist panacea. This country, they are willing to do that. They have, and the Democrats, they keep talking about the Russians trying to influence our elections. The illegals are influencing our culture, and they've taken it over. So
that's right.
That's what we're facing.
And now that we know for a fact now that the illegal aliens have been voting. So it's quite easy to say, in my mind, that Obama was illegally elected president.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense that this country, this great country, would elect a man such as that.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that he got in illegitimately. And there could be hundreds of other elections all across the country, state and local level, that have been illegally taken place also.
Well, and remember, the Democrat Party is the party of illegality. They embrace everything that's ever been illegal. They embrace it.
Well, you said it yourself earlier, and I don't hear many people ever say this, but you said it, that they were the loyalists to the England when they first started.
Yes.
So they've been against America's founding since the beginning.
That's right.
So that's who they are. And most people don't understand that, and I appreciate that you do.
Well, there's a lot more that's in history that we overlook, and that's on purpose, just like you said, it was Dewey and his people that got this education system to where it is, that they're miseducating our children and allowing the influence of this country to come in and profit. The higher education institutions are profiting off of selling this country down the drain. And all you have to do is look at the numbers of the STEM program and the A1B program. Thanks for your call, Gary. You're welcome anytime. You hear about the music. We're on our way out the door. And I want to say to everybody, especially my partner Dale Marsh, happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to have you back at this microphone as soon as possible. Thanks again. The Abolitionist Round Table invites the Wham Talk 1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and tell a friend.